This is The Future of Money, a podcast where we hope to educate and get educated about the new world of blockchain and digital money. And my name is Eric Den Boer, and I will be your host. Hi again, and welcome to the blockchain, the money of the future. And with me again, we have Jasper and Lee. And I think since we talked about Bitcoin and the blockchains the last time, I think we should also talk about, well, there's a lot to talk about, but we're going to talk about a little bit about the energy consumption and the different way they validate their blocks. So one thing I know that you guys don't know about is that Bitcoin, for instance, we use something called proof of work, where the miner is mining the Bitcoins, and the mining of the Bitcoins, you use a lot of electricity and to validate each block, and that's called proof of work. There are other cryptocurrencies out there that use something called proof of stake, which means that you will have coins that you bought on exchange, on the crypto exchange, and then you use those and say, okay, I'm going to take 1 million of these coins here, and I'm going to do a mining project, and then if I try to fib, then those coins will go away. So we're talking about if you want to run a pool to do a pool staking, and you'll have $1 million in there, and if you are not following the rules, you can lose those coins.
Wow. Okay.
So, well, that's proof of stake. I don't think we should go very deep into all of these because there are so many of them. You have something called proof of space, for instance, where you actually are providing with a hard drive space. And the more space you are providing for each blocks and stuff like that, then you invest money in buying hard drive space. And the more space you use, that's called proof of stake and space, and then you can win blocks that way. You also have, yes, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say this is super interesting because I think for a long time we think about cryptocurrency from the consumer end, but you're talking about it from the production end. Is it easy for a person to get in on the production side of it? Like, say I wanted to become a miner.
So
how easy is that?
If depending a little bit what you want to mine, there are new projects coming out that uses proof of work, and if you're really early in that project, then you can probably join with just a regular laptop or something like that. But the harder the algorithm gets, and the more people that are mining, the more equipment you need to get.
Just to be able to compete.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And proof of stake, obviously, is that if it's an early, currency or a block that they're starting, then you can maybe go in with, let's say that you need 100,000 of those coins, right? And the coins are only 2 cents a piece. Well, then you haven't really invested a lot of money in it yet. So you can go in there. The other thing you can also do is that it's called pool mining, where a lot of people, where we don't have a lot of computers, right? But you and me and her and 10 other people can go together, and someone will be the having the node, and we will just give our computer power in there, and then if they win a block, then that gets distributed by everyone. Yeah.
Wow.
Same thing with proof of stake, where you can go in and say, hey, he didn't have 1 million coins, but he had 100,000. Well, I have another 100,000, and you have another 100,000, and so on. And you put that in a pool. Then, if we win the block, that gets shared. Nice. So it's called pool staking. Yes.
Okay. And so, just as a reminder from a previous conversation we had, when you're saying proof, all these different ways of proof, these are different ways to sort of verify when a block is won.
That's
right?
absolutely correct. Yes.
Getting it.
Yes.
We're learning.
Yes, we're all learning. I learned a couple of things yesterday. I was like, oh, mind blow. And of course, and proof of storage, we talk about that. Proof of capacity, proof of space time. So there are different ways of doing that, depending a little bit on what they are trying to accomplish with that block. Proof of storage, for instance, could be if they're doing a lot of transactions, smaller transactions, or verifications of logistics, for instance, stuff like that. So those things are, I mean, they're different ones of that. We did talk about the electricity consumption. Mm-hmm. So actually, I did go back and take a little deep dive into that. And one thing that I did find out that I thought was very, very interesting. Yes, Bitcoin mining is requiring a lot of energy to do that, because the more miners, the harder the algorithm, the more machines you have. But one thing that I noticed was also that China, about a year or so ago, they said, yes, you can't do mining anymore. And China was really big on using cheap electricity, like coal and stuff like that. And because they completely just forbid it pretty much on a day, and you can see on the curves that, you know, the mining went up and then just sank down. And what have happened here is that other countries have taken that up, such as Iceland, for instance, that are using geothermal energy. Mm. And one of the things that I was really impressed with is that they would use geothermal, you know, to do the mining. And of course, you know, all of those machines creates a lot of heat. They then take that heat and transport that down to the village and heat up all the houses. And we are starting to see more and more within this community that they are using more green energy. El Salvador is using volcanoes, for instance. How would they do that? I don't know, but that's very interesting. I
think it's geothermal.
Yeah.
It would be the same, probably a different way, but yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
And so, and then contrary to these other ones where you have the proof of stake, for instance, you don't need all that capacity, because basically what you're doing is that you're taking your coins and putting that in there, and the coins will be, you know, your security, so to speak. So I was reading about Ethereum, and they said that if they move Ethereum from proof of work, which they are working on right now, to proof of stake, their energy consumption will go down with 92%.
Oh, wow.
And that's quite a lot. So a lot of the energy consumption, yes, that's a lot.
I know. Well, I'm trying to figure, is it because it's just a quicker way of verifying? Is it because there's less algorithm, less work, less mining that needs to be done, or?
You don't need all that same computer power
to do it. Okay.
You know.
Yeah, sounds like a right move.
Yeah. You can definitely deep dive into that.
Will a lot of cryptocurrencies, you think, make that move, or are a lot of the new cryptocurrencies starting out that way, or what?
No, I think proof of work is probably start. You know, if I was starting up something new, I would probably not look at proof of work, okay, because of the energy consumption.
Okay.
You know, so I do think that the community are starting to move more and more towards that direction. Proof of stake was, you know, when Satoshi and them started up Bitcoin and stuff like that, proof of stake was probably not one of those that was way up on the list. It wasn't as developed as it is today. Okay. That is my assumption anyway.
Do you find that it will become more accessible to sort of mine from like now into the future, and that people will kind of gravitate towards doing that than sort of the consumer aspect of it, of like cryptocurrencies? Just buying.
Yeah. Having a wallet and putting it in there.
I do think that, so that leads into the next thing. So okay, yeah. you will have the difference between crypto coins that are mined and tokens.
Ah, okay.
Yes, that's right.
And companies that are popping up, for instance, on Ethereum, what they're doing, they're using the Ethereum platform, but what they're doing to validate their blocks, but what they're doing is that they create tokens on the Ethereum platform, and then they will sell the tokens. And then, you know, so
you use your Ethereum to buy certain tokens, and then these tokens can be used for other things. Is that kind of how it is?
They make a smart contract, and we will get into smart contract at some point. But what they do is they create a smart contract on the Ethereum network, and then they say, okay, well, I'm going to make 10 million tokens, and then they just create that right there. And it's actually, you can do that. Yeah. It's not very hard. Okay. So to create those tokens, what you're doing is you're paying a fee to Ethereum. You have to have Ethereum to be able to do those. But once that's the transaction. I'm making these tokens, I'm putting that on Ethereum block, and then away we go. And then you can start, using those tokens as either, assets, or or you can sell the tokens almost like stocks.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. So can we real briefly talk about the difference between actual cryptocurrency and tokens?
Yeah, absolutely.
What's the difference between cryptocurrency and tokens?
So cryptocurrencies, three things. Cryptocurrencies, a currency will actually operate on its block. The cryptocurrency is directly attached to the block. So with Bitcoin, for instance, you are either getting Bitcoin for the transactions you're doing on that block, or you're getting paid Bitcoins for mining that whole block. And Bitcoins or coins acts more like a currency, like a money and stuff like that. And of course, they are mined. Currencies are often mined. Tokens, on the other hand, they are created on an already existing block.
Yep.
Like I said, with Ethereum, you can create them on that block. And they usually represent physical assets or like a service or NFTs.
NFTs are a form of tokens.
It's a form of token, yes.
Ah, okay.
So
can you like sort of like cross the like blocks? So like, can I use like Bitcoin to buy like tokens that were made on Ethereum?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely. You can do that if you go to an exchange. You have to go to an exchange.
So you got to exchange from the Bitcoin to Ethereum to purchase these tokens.
No, you can buy the token direct. If you have Bitcoin, for instance, and you're looking at a token that you want to buy, then you can go to your chosen platform and say, hey, I'm really interested in this project here, and I want to buy these tokens in that, and then you can pay with money.
Okay, anything. Okay.
Or you can pay with Ethereum or.
Okay.
So
it doesn't matter in terms of like purchasing it. It just matters in terms of like its creation.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Aha. Sorry, it didn't make sense until you said that to me. So
yeah. So tokens actually. So you can actually run a software protocol on a token. And the token will, similar to you using the NFTs as a token. And as we talked about smart contracts. Smart contracts are not really that smart, really. Smart contracts, basically what they're doing, if you want to look at it, it's a what-if statement. It's like you want to buy something from you, and you guys agree on a price for this product. You sign a contract in the middle, and then you put in the money here, and he puts in the product here. And then once the statements have been met, let's say it's going to be 10 of something, right, that you're going to pay for this product. And once this is met, then the transaction happens. Okay. And that's basically all a smart contract does. But when you think about it, you can do that in anything, in real estate, in NFTs. I mean, here I have an NFT, and this is how much it's going to be worth, and you make a smart contract to do that. Or you can use the smart contract and say, okay, this picture looks like this, and this is the code for this, and once this is met, then that becomes, and all of this then goes on the blockchain platform, and it stays. Yes.
So that it makes sense to, I understand why you would make a contract so that the terms are all set out and all that stuff. Mm-hmm. Is it legally binding?
If you real estate is really interested in this now. Yeah, they're doing deeds and all that kind of stuff, and
like kind of in a form of a token, or
that's crazy.
Yeah.
I know that we've talked about NFTs in particular, which we don't need to get into for this because we're going to mostly be talking about crypto. But I do think, tell me whether or not this is wrong, because the way I think about tokens is kind of like what you said, they can function like stock or like as an identifier, right? Mm-hmm. That's what we talked about before, is that it's really code that is linked to another thing.
Yes.
And it's the identifier of the other thing. Yeah. Okay, sweet. Just want to make sure I got that.
Yeah, and I do think that, NFTs are actually they would be perfect as identifiers. To use that as an example. That once you put that on the blockchain, you say that this NFT picture is this thing. You put it on the blockchain, although it's a code. But then what people are saying is, you can then sell portions out of that. Well, okay, I own, the Mona Lisa, right?
Yeah.
Which is the true identity. But you can then say, hey, if you want to buy a stake in Mona Lisa, and hopefully that price of that goes up, then this is the price for each square centimeter or something like that. And then you create another contract saying that this is what's going to be worth. And then if it goes up to that point, then you can say, hey, I want to sell my little square to you for this price, and I made a little bit of money or whatever.
Wow.
But you can also use these things for cars. For instance, in the future, we're going to have self-driving cars. So who owns that car? Well, as it comes out of the manufacturer, this is the identity of the car, and this is going to be then put on the blockchain. If we want to do... I explained that in another course that I was, where we were talking about on the meetup group. And I said, okay, imagine that everything is tracked for this car, right? So you go to a mining company, they dig up the mines, the ore, and they put it on a cart, and that cart has a number 5. That goes on the that's on the ledger here, right? And then the cart goes to the factory, and then in there it gets smelted and all that kind of stuff. And here, I have a metal.
Every step of the way.
Yeah, that goes on the ledger, right? So all of these has its own little number. Like the cart that it came on has its number, so we know that it was mined in that, from that.
Right.
So you trade on that ledger, you do everything. So in the end, you will have the color of the paint, you will have the seats, you will have everything. And then in the end, you have all of that there, and you hash that together, and it becomes one hash, and that becomes the ID or the NFT or how you want to see on the blockchain. And now that car that number represents that car, and if you scan
all the
information, and if you scan it, you can go in and say, it was the ore was mined in Sweden, for instance, right?
Yeah.
So now you have that identity of the car. Then the car is driving around because it's an electric car in the future, and it's driving itself. Sure. So it drives around, and then it goes, I am picking up a customer over there. Actually, you own the car, but during the day when you're at work, you're going to Uber the car. So make a little extra money.
Of course.
That's a crazy concept. That you could have a self-driving car, and then, I'm going to be at work for 8 hours. Just go drive people around. That's crazy.
So the car then drives and picks him up. Yeah. And he pays, obviously, with cryptocurrency.
Obviously.
So all the transactions that are done with that car, he gets a ding. You go to that street, picks you up. He drives you to wherever you want to go, and ding, you pay with your card and everything. And he started noticing and said, okay, I'm down to 30% of electricity. He drives himself to a station, and then plugs himself in, and then he pays with the currency that you or whatever it is, right? All of these little transaction goes, but it's always connected to the same car.
Right.
So that's the traceability, and then so you need that ID. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. No, yeah. So this is interesting because right now our cars have serial numbers, right? Mm-hmm. But this is completely different from that because I'm guessing in a serial number it's you get the whole car, right? The whole car is traced to this number, whereas you're saying almost every inch of the car, anything that's produced, because you could have a car, you could have the tires come from this company, or the steering wheel come from this company, and all of that gets mushed in together into these serial numbers, whereas this is we'll be able to know for exact detail that this came from this place, this came from this place, this came from this place. And so let's say the car goes on a self-driving trip and gets into an accident somewhere, you know what I mean? And it's the steering wheel didn't move away. Well, now we can go back and go, okay, well, the steering wheel malfunction, and this steering wheel company's fault. You know what I mean? That's
a lot of
implication
in there. Yes.
Yeah, wow.
Even deeper, it was manufactured on this day during this shift, and this guy was working the line. I think you could get it, which is got really good things about it, but also
Kinda,
like everything
Yes.
has some problematic things with it.
And I do think if I'm going to just go on a whole different area, it would be identity for people.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing here is that what I'm really looking forward to is the day when, everything, from the time when you're born and whatever doctor you go to and all that kind of stuff is actually put on a ledger. And then you are in the United States and you fly to Finland and you get hurt in a car accident, and they will go in and say, okay, so all your medical record is on this kind of blockchain. They scan it down and they know,
And
yeah,
they
oh,
can
wait
see
a second,
everything.
he actually had his appendix removed then and then. Or
He's allergic
Which
to
is
Yeah,
sort of easier to like, it's more accessible than like kind of like our system
Yeah.
now of
Yeah, exactly.
like gathering information.
and
Again, but it's interesting. I mean, it makes so much sense because you can put so much information,
Yes.
and it's accessible so quickly. But I would just always am thinking there's privacy advocates. There's got to be people who are scared of this kind of thing where you can access it.
Like personally, there's a fear that like I feel, like as we're talking about, it's like, man, like wait, my entire identity is in a like instead of my driver's license, it's like on this like it's an NFT essentially.
code,
It's in a code, and there's a little bit of fear that goes in. It's like, yo, wait, what?
I know.
all right. So now, that said, you just keep all of that information in your private wallet.
Right.
So you only give out the information if you want to.
Ah.
So all
Problem
of that.
solved. That's awesome.
So if you have all of that information on and there are probably obviously going to be.
I was gonna say
some things that are going to be open sourced and some things that are going to be private.
I was gonna say that to me doesn't seem like it'll last long. Like I could see like a government being like, now you have to share, like we have to, like what's to stop, like
or just an insurance company.
yeah,
It's like
or
if you're gonna
insurance
do business
company,
with
or
us.
like what's to stop like the powers that be from like kind of crossing that sort of like ethical line of like
that
we're
that
living
is
in
a really
Minority
good
Report.
question.
yeah exactly where
It would be interesting to have someone that knows a little bit more about that, because right now, basically all I do is just speculate in what I think can happen in the future, right?
Yeah.
But
Well,
it would be
we're-
interesting to have someone in there that knows a little bit more about that. So
Let's do
maybe
it.
we find someone that could do that.
Okay.
But my speculation would be that if an insurance company goes in and say that, okay, we want to insure you, but before we insure you, you need to share your medical history, right? So then it's up to you.
Okay,
You say
that makes sense.
Hey,
Yeah.
I'm gonna share this, but because I trust you, and you're gonna have all my information on your private, hospital, so it doesn't get hacked or whatever.
That makes sense.
And then because you own all your own information, then you can say that, okay, I want you to know about this and this and this.
You can choose.
And yeah,
I like this. So it's like it's in some ways it's like putting the power of your information back into like yourself, which is like the opposite of what's been happening like in our world lately. It's like
Yes.
companies are like constantly trying and like doing little tricks to get your information and stuff, and so
And they know
Yeah, remember
everything
what we
about
said
us.
in the beginning, the internet of truth.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's bringing the power back to the owner.
To individuals.
Yeah, individuals.
Yeah.
And we I think we vaguely touched on the Web3 concept, and that is more, I own things
Yeah.
and all that kind of stuff. But I think we will deep dive in that later on.
No, definitely. Before I want to ask, like, as like, I mean, we're talking about the implications of like this technology and cryptocurrency like being used in so many different parts of life. I'm curious, and we talked about energy consumption earlier too, and like I'm curious like what that will do to like the energy consumption and like the energy we'll need to create, IDs as NFTs, and like, to like transfer like hospitals to like, this sort of like, and then like how many miners we'll need to like code and like mine all of that information. Like what will that do to like our energy consumption and stuff?
Well, do you remember in the beginning of, computers and all that kind of stuff that people were saying, printers?
Okay.
They said, so, we're not going to sit there and print, and we're not going to be using paper as much anymore, and then that will all go away. Well, we're still using paper.
Yeah.
But we have adopted. We're still using some parts here, but we are, not using some things here and all that kind of stuff. I also think that if you look into the future of energy, for instance, we have just barely started understanding how to tap into solar, for instance.
Yep.
Right, and we are using wind power, we are using geothermal and nuclear and all that kind of stuff. And the more time goes, the less fossil fuels we'll be using. Not because we want to use less fuel, but I think we are at some point going to run out of it. Maybe not my lifetime or my son's, but sometimes all that, because it's not infinite. But the sun is. So, and I also know that when it comes to solar. The solar panels that are on people's roofs now, I think are called like Generation 4 or something like that. And they're already doing research on Generation 9.
Wow.
So,
okay.
I remembered, the first time the solar panels came out and people were like, wow, that's so cool. Now you can get a solar panel that you attach to your jacket because it's bendable. And so when it comes to energy consumption.
You think we'll adapt and we'll grow and we'll be able to?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think that we're going to start using energies, and it could be that we will start using more energy. But on the other hand, the more we can take out of the sun, for instance, then we won't see the difference anymore. So that could very well. As I said, right now we're just speculating, but it's fun to go into those thoughts. Yes. One thing that we were talking about, to go back to cryptocurrencies and talking about cryptocurrencies, was something that came up was fraud and scams and all that kind of stuff. And I do think that we maybe need to touch that a little bit because we're talking cryptocurrencies and tokens this time. So I did a little bit of research on that. The research I got is not up to date. It's 2 or 3 years old. But one of the things that I did notice in there is that we do the comparison with, and what we're only going to do now is scams and hiding money and all that kind of stuff. We're not going to really touch into drugs and all that other stuff.
Human trafficking and all that.
Yeah, because those numbers were not included in those I found. So I mean, there's more into that. But when it comes to Bitcoin, for instance, there was only $673 million. That was used in illicit activities. So
Bitcoin?
Bitcoin. In Bitcoin.
Okay.
Yeah. And of course, the whole Bitcoin for that year was over $673 billion.
Yeah.
So you're looking at a small fraction of that was used for illicit activities, like hiding money or all that kind of stuff. Then I did a comparison with just the US dollar, because that's one of the currencies that is, you can use the US dollar anywhere in the world. And you can use Bitcoin anywhere in the world too. So I wanted to compare two currencies that are, equally spread and all that kind of stuff. Well, so out of just the dollar value, the total amount of dollars it was spread around the world and was used in the world was $90 trillion. No, not billions, but trillions. And out of that, there was $2 trillion used for illicit activities. And so when you compare, if we want to do just a comparing percentage, it was 1% in Bitcoin and it was 2% in money. If you look at money, just the value of money, it was $600 million used in illicit and $2 billion in dollars. So it's a little bit unfair to say that, we're using Bitcoins to illicit activities, because the number one currency for illicit activities is dollars. So if you compare then, so for every dollar that is used for whatever they're doing in illicit activities, there's only 0.00125 cents in Bitcoin that's were used.
Gotcha. That's the important point, is that the worth is so much, so unbalanced. I mean, essentially, we're looking at 1% of criminal or, tax evasion, that kind of thing happening in the dollar economy, and then 1% in the Bitcoin economy. So it's double.
Yes.
Percentage-wise.
Percentage-wise, yes.
And so, I mean, I think it just seems like it would be best for all of us moving forward into this new future to just accept the fact that there's going to be illicit activity.
I was going to say,
like
yeah.
no
Yes.
matter what happens.
Yes.
I mean, people are going to be people. You know?
Exactly. Yes. So in an established economy of dollars that's all over the country or all over the globe, that's kind of like the cat's out of the bag on that one.
Yeah.
But there's the potential, because we're at the beginning of this, to do regulation, to set rules,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And then we talk about the inherent kind of truth in it,
The traceability, yes.
traceability, which makes it seem like it would be a safer.
Yeah, as a matter of fact,
Currency.
so Bitcoin can always be traced.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter what you do. I mean, so as soon as someone takes it out of a wallet and you know that person owns the wallet, or you know where that wallet being connected into or whatever, it's traceable. A good example of this was in the news maybe a month or so ago, where there were a couple of people that had stolen. I think it was $2 billion worth of Bitcoin or so.
Oh, wow.
Maybe I can't remember what it was. These people actually were caught as soon, and they really tried their best to hide it, but they we're not going to go into all the details how they did it, but in the end they were caught.
Yes.
Because it is traceable. With dollars, for instance, there's a lot of dollars that changes hands
Right.
that nobody knows about.
Yeah.
But not only that, there are certain countries that have become experts on falsifying dollars. And what they do is they say, okay, we will make $20 bills, and for $1,000 you get $6,000 or $7,000 in fake $20 bills that you can hardly see the difference.
Wow.
So then the question is that, okay, what is the traceability and what is not, and stuff like that. The other thing also is that, people are doing stock trades or, shorts and all that kind of stuff. All of that's going to be traceable. So that is one of the big benefits of running it on blockchain.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I'm curious. I mean, I'm really curious now. Like, will there be you think there'll be a day and time where that same thing will be said of Bitcoin? Like, there'll be countries or people that can make, identical codes to that.
No, because
No.
the thing is that the Bitcoin comes from the first Bitcoin blockchain.
Okay.
How are you going to add that? Well, you can fork off the Bitcoin blockchain and create your own, and then say, hey, I got Bitcoin Lite, for instance.
Yeah.
It's just a fork, or Bitcoin Satoshi's Vision, SV, is also just a fork off of that. Right, and then they created, and people are then, oh yeah, I'm going to trade in that.
But you won't be able to dupe anybody and be like, this is Bitcoin, when it actually isn't.
No.
Dang.
All right. That's probably a good stopping point.
Yes. Thank you so much. And you guys, if you have any questions, please contact us at KUAF and come and join us at the Blockchain Northwest Arkansas meetup group. And we will see you next time.